If you need to hire employees in order to open up your storefront, this video is for you. We're going to talk about all the things you need to know before you even put that hiring ad out into the universe. If this sounds like something that will help you out, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to my channel so I can come back every week and keep giving more tips on how to get you to your grand opening. The first thing, and the most obvious, is finding out what your minimum wage is in your area. It can vary from state to state, but also it can vary from city to city. And if your employees get tips, then the minimum wage can be lower, but on average, they have to still be able to make minimum wage. So if the amount of tips that they're getting doesn't bring them up to minimum wage criteria, you'll have to make up the difference. So that means it's up to you on whether you want to pay strictly state minimum wage and let tips be on top of that, or if you think they'll definitely have enough tips to make up the difference and hopefully above that so that they can make a good living. Now that you know how much minimum wage is and you know how you're going to pay your employees at all different levels, you need to know how you're going to pay them. There are a few ways that you can do this. You can hire a full HR company, human relations from top to bottom. They will handle all of your benefits. They will handle your payroll. They will make sure that your employees are paying the correct taxes. And then they will make sure that you have your W-2s, your 1099s and such for the end of the year. They will also usually have an option for like clocking in and out and doing scheduling and stuff like that. The downfall to these is that they're usually pretty expensive, and for a small business, especially when you're just starting up, it can be kind of a heavy load on the top. Another way you can handle it is to get software that you run yourself. Gusto is who we use at KidSpace, and that software is a lower cost per month, but it also keeps track of all of the items that you need for your employees. So your hire date, your fire date if necessary, how much their last paycheck was. They can get in and see all of that information. They can print their own information as well. And then you can also see their W-2s. They'll file your quarterly reports for payroll. It's really a nice kind of happy medium because expense-wise, it's something that you can afford as a small business, or at least we could afford. And then it still keeps everything in one nice, neat little bow. You can add other features as well as far as benefits go, or clocking in and clocking out for your employees. Those are options that can add on, but as far as a low entry, it's a great way to have a per employee cost with a low monthly fee, but still keeps everything super organized and makes sure that you're doing everything that you're supposed to do legally and tax-wise for your company. A third way you can do it, and the cheapest way, is to keep track of it yourself in something like QuickBooks or in your own files. You just have to make sure that legally you're keeping track of how much you're paying them and what taxes you've been taking care of. The next thing to think about is, how are you going to keep track of their hours? Do they need to clock in and out? Is that something that you have already gotten taken care of through your payroll software or your HR software? Or is it something that they can do through your point of sale? A lot of point of sale systems have a built-in clock in and clock out system so that you can keep track of your employees, and it allows them to clock in right when they walk in the door and when they walk out. There are other options where they can clock in on their phones, and that just is up to you on whether or not you want employees to be able to clock in on their own devices, or that you would rather make sure that they're actually in the door and clocking in on the computers inside the building. Scheduling software is another thing that you have to think about. You need to know, what are your busy times, what are your slower times. If you're a coffee shop and you're really busy in the morning, you need more employees, and then it starts to taper off in the afternoon. Or are you a place like mine that has birthday parties and the weekends are slammed? So you really have to make sure that you have enough employees to handle it. On the flip side, you want to make sure you're not scheduling too many employees for your slower periods and spending money that you don't need to spend. Salaries are going to be one of the most expensive pieces of running your business. So you want to make sure that you're not overspending on that when you don't need to. Scheduling software can be very complicated and robust, or it can be pretty simple. So it really depends on the kind of business that you have and your needs so that you can keep track of your employees. If you have a lot of employees, you really need a software that's more robust so that they can make their own switches and swaps when they can't make it into work. They can use the system themselves to solve some of the issues on staffing. If you only have a few people, it's usually not that complicated. You can use something like a Google Calendar, which is completely free. That's what we do. We've had really good luck so far. So it really just depends on the type of business that you have and what makes sense to you. Another thing that you're going to want to have in place before you ever have an employee walk in the building is your policies and procedures. You want to know what your policy is for when they show up, what happens if they don't show up, what happens if somebody is sick and how they switch their shifts. You also want to know what your procedures are for either disciplinary actions or promotions. Some of those are going to vary from state to state as well, and that is why you have to really research your state to see what the rules are. When you start to look at some of the legal issues, you have to know what your state requires. You will immediately, as soon as you open your doors, start getting letters saying that you have to have this poster and you have to have that poster and you have to buy it from those people. You don't. You can go to your state's website. You can print off most of those things yourself. You can order fancy ones and big ones that go up on your walls, and that's fine too, and they won't cost you very much. But go to your state website. Look there first. Don't listen to every spare piece of mail that tells you that you're going to go to jail if you don't order the poster from them. It's almost always a fraud. One more thing you need to know is whether or not your state is an at-will state. At-will employment means that as an employer, you're allowed to terminate your employees at any time for any reason as long as it's a legal reason. It also means that your employees are allowed to leave at any time for any reason. Remember, it has to be a legal reason, and you need to look at your state's website and your city's website to make sure that you're not overstepping any bounds that would cross that legal barrier. One of the last things I want to talk about is how to fire someone. It's not the fun part of owning a business, but it is something that is going to happen. It happens to everybody at some point in time. So if you have to fire someone, those rules vary from state to state and city to city as well. So you need to make sure that you really research what to do when you have to let somebody go. Even if it's a legal reason and you're an at-will state, you still need to know how to make it happen officially and legally correctly. In some states, you're required to give them their final paycheck right as they are walking out the door. So if you're going to terminate somebody, you need to go into your payroll system and calculate how much you owe them minus your taxes and write them a physical check that you can hand to them immediately. Okay, now we'll talk about the fun stuff. What do you want your employees to experience when they work with you? I always talk about the experience because it really matters. What did you like as an employee at certain places that you worked? What did you hate as an employee? Don't repeat those same mistakes. What are some things that motivate you or inspire you to do better work? What do you think will motivate and inspire your employees to stay around and be loyal and love coming into work every day? Having great employees can be extremely fun, and having an atmosphere that you like walking into every day and they like walking into every day is a huge bonus when you get to start your own business. So make sure you've created an environment that's fun and inviting and people want to be a part of. Employees love being a part of a startup. They love feeling like they have some ownership in how it goes and how it grows. So give them a chance to do that. If this video was helpful, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel so that I can come back every single week and help more of you get your store to its grand opening.